Sunday, have you thought about what we talked about?
Ah, Amaka, you worry too much. We are fine. Nothing will happen to us of time.
It's not about worrying, it's about being safe. HIV is real, you know that, right?
Amaka, you and this your health talk, eh? We are young and healthy. What's the big deal?
The big deal is that being young doesn't make us immune. We need to use protection today.
Good afternoon today, Amaka. How can I help you today?
Doctor, we've been talking about staying safe. I think today needs to understand more about HIV prevention.
I'm glad you are here. Today, HIV is a virus that weakens the immune system. It's transmitted through unprotected sex, sharing needles, and other risky behaviors.
But doctor, if we are careful, isn't that enough?
Being careful is good, but being protected is better. Condoms reduce the risk of HIV significantly. And there's also pre-exposure prophylaxis or PrEP, which can help protect you even more.
You see, Tunde, it's not just about trust, it's about taking action.
Good afternoon. Pharmacist, please, we would like to buy condom and learn more about PrEP.
Oh, great decision. I'll help you with that.
One choice can change your life. Protect yourself, protect your partner, and protect your future. HIV is preventable. The power is in your hand.
This message is brought to you by Radio Clinic with Anu Oluwapo, reminding you that prevention is better than cure. Make the right choice today.
Without doctor's prescription, all on doctor's attention. If you need solution, too much is given, much is expected.
It's 17 minutes gone past 12. Good afternoon to you from wherever you're listening to this very dial on Auto 103.5 FM. And this is an edition of the broadcast called Radio Clinic, where we get you into the latest in the world of health and give you health tips, advice, and every of the things you can use. Of course, we have medical doctors who are going to be speaking to us also on this very edition of the program. And today, just to celebrate, or to join hands with United Nations World Health Organization, today, the 1st of December, is World AIDS Day. And World AIDS Day brings together people from around the world to raise awareness about HIV and AIDS, and demonstrate international solidarity in the face of the pandemic. And the day is an opportunity for public and private partners to spread awareness about the status of the pandemic and encourage progress in HIV and AIDS prevention, treatment, and care around the world. It has become one of the most widely recognized international health days and a key opportunity to raise awareness, commemorate those who have died, and celebrate victories such as increased access to treatment and prevention services. And of course, today we are going to be discussing this particular disease called AIDS. What exactly is AIDS? What should we know about AIDS? What are our responsibilities towards this? And what's the topic for today's celebration of 2024 World AIDS Day? Take the right path. That's the topic. My health, my rights. And that is what we are going to be discussing today. We check into some of the questions. We have doctors who are going to help us into all of this as we have them come on board. And just before we get this started, of course, in 2023, an estimated 39.9 million people were living with HIV globally, according to a data. And of course, approximately 630,000 people died from HIV-related causes in 2023. An estimated 1.3 million people acquired HIV also in 2023. You see why we should talk about this, because it's a big issue a very topical issue that we must address as well.
Fertilize your potential. On the sound of times, so you're in the
And of course, HIV remains a major global public health issue, having claimed an estimated 42.3 million lives to date. Transmission is ongoing in all countries globally, and of course that's why this program, Radio Clinic, has been brought up to create awareness about your health, my health, and our health all together. Let's talk about it. What exactly is the problem? If you have questions, you can also contribute and join, and we'll have your voice aired on radio today. We have a doctor who's going to be joining us in the course of this edition of the broadcast. Dr. Bamiboye Oluwatoni is joining us also on this particular issue. It's World AIDS Day today, December 1st. It was December 4th, so but we are still tackling World AIDS Day with respect to the fact that we have to talk about it, create awareness. If we don't, we will. And even if we do, people must know, because people need to be aware, people need to be informed, people need to be educated about this particular disease, and we must tackle it together. Together we can raise a voice. And of course, also bring us into more perspective. There was an estimated 39.9 million people living with HIV at the end of 2023, 65% of whom are in the WHO African region, which is where Nigeria belongs now. In 2023, an estimated 630 people died from HIV-related causes, and an estimated 1.3 million people acquired HIV. And as we speak, there's no cure for HIV infection. However, with access to effective HIV prevention, diagnosis, treatment, and care, including for opportunistic infections, HIV infection has become a manageable chronic health condition. If you get that manageable chronic health condition, that means it can be managed, enabling people living with HIV to lead long and healthy lives. WHO, World Health Organization, the Global Fund, and UNAIDS all have global HIV strategies that are aligned with the SDG target 3.3 of ending the HIV pandemic by 2030. And by 2025, 95% of all people living with HIV should have a diagnosis, 95% of whom should be taking life-saving antiretroviral drug and treatment, and 95% of people living with HIV on treatment should achieve a suppressed viral load for the benefit of the person's health and for reducing onward HIV transmission. In 2023, these percentages were 86%, 89%, and 93% respectively, and in 2023, all people living with HIV, 86% knew their status, 77% were receiving antiretroviral therapy, and 72% had suppressed viral loads. And that is what we have concerning that. But you know, we need to get to know about these things. We need to talk about the signs and symptoms. How do I know I can I have contracted the disease? So some of those questions are the questions we are going to be spotlighting today. We put them in check and ask questions as much as we can today. Hello, good afternoon, Dr. Oluwatoni Bamiboye. Good afternoon to you. All right, welcome to the show today.
Thank you so much.
How's the weather? How's the weather over there?
It's hot. It's very hot. The sun is watching.
All right, so help us into this. Let's get started already, shall we?
Sorry?
I said get us started already, shall we?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so there's been a lot of controversy, especially let's start with controversies first. I mean, there's one. People talk about HIV and AIDS, and there's a question: is there a difference between HIV and AIDS, or it's just the same word? You can use the acronyms together, or how does it play out in the medical field?
Oh, okay. HIV and AIDS are actually not the same. AIDS is like a later stage of HIV. So HIV means human immunodeficiency virus. So it's possible that a person gets infected and the person might not necessarily progress to AIDS depending on how well the person is able to curtail the infection. AIDS is acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, and usually in the later part of HIV, like the later stage of HIV, mostly seen in people that do not take any medication for the infection, or in people that do not even know that they have HIV. And then, like 10 to 15 years down the line, they see that, oh, they come down with AIDS.
All right, thank you very much for that, Doctor. So, just to bring more perspectives into this now, because I've spoken to some people, it seems like there's a lot of stigma around people who have contracted the virus. So, there's always that sensitivity, as it were, not to expose their status to people. They don't tell people, or they find it hard to really narrate it to people. But just I've seen a lot of people complain that that's one of the problems they have going to the hospitals. But what do you think the the government, or particularly health ministry, is doing in response to this to ensure that people get access to antiretroviral drugs? Of course, we are going to get to that point. But what do you think the government can do better to encourage people to be able to come out and tell that they have, especially to medical practitioners like you, without the fear of breach of confidentiality?
Okay, so if I get the question right, you want to know what the government maybe can do,
Or
that people
medical,
are more open
yeah, or
about.
medical agencies, like maybe where you work or some of the hospitals you've worked before. What do you do to encourage people to come out clean?
Is it people that already know about their status, or people, or encouraging people to know their status?
Both the people that are about to know or people that have known already.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. People that are about to know, because I know that due to like what you rightly said, the stigma around HIV and the like, people, so people don't even want to know what their status is.
Yeah.
So I guess for that, I think what we can do is just to encourage people more, and more information about how it can be curtailed and they can live like relatively normal life. And also maybe also having like places for this um, testing. Maybe they don't have to necessarily be like, oh, HIV clinic. We already have that. We already have like testing kits that people can use to just check their status. So I guess I guess work has actually been put into like make people know their status with ease, and not necessarily make everybody know this person wants to go and test for HIV and things like that.
Oh,
So I think as regards the other one you asked, so you want to say something, sir?
no, yeah, I wanted to ask you because I think I'm just trying to protect a bit of information. But I got one information that there was a particular big person, as it were, a celebrity, that went to the hospital and then got checked, and they discovered the person had the virus. And
Okay.
unfortunately, one of the doctors had to spew that. So the person brought it out on the, social
What of the
media,
doctor
and then
was?
expressed that. And I mean, like the doctor that attended to the
Okay.
celebrity brought out the reports and posted it online, and then people started seeing all of that. So it became a thing of confidentiality
Um,
breach. But what do you think the maybe management agencies or particularly hospitals are doing to guide people's status from being public?
Oh, because thank you very much. Ideally, people's status, even when it's not HIV, you shouldn't just share people's medical records anyhow, like, because that's why we have confidentiality.
Hmm.
So for that, I don't know why the doctor did what the doctor did, but it wasn't the right thing to do.
But do you know of any
Um,
rule or law in the medical profession that guides against such?
we are not allowed to just tell people about other people's medical conditions. Like,
Hmm.
I can't just go and say, oh, okay, maybe for instance, a celebrity comes to my clinic and then I just go on my social media and I'm like, oh, this person has this, has this, has this. It's very wrong. And there's a council body at least that could curtail that.
All right, let's switch on away from that question now. Let's talk about people have fears, right? One of the fears is that people feel like without treatment, some people, they've seen reports of people actually got, you know, they got better well, and some said, but without treatment, how quickly can a person living with HIV become ill? Because for some it might take longer before they get to even know to get tested, but some they just immediately when they have signs and symptoms, they feel like, oh, maybe this is HIV. So how, without treatment now, how quickly can a person living with HIV become ill, maybe severely
Like,
ill?
progressively. Okay, so basically, it could take like 10 to 15 years for a person living with HIV to enter into the AIDS part of it. the
Wow.
8th part of the spectrum. Yes.
So between the first and the 10 years, that means if I get to open up, I get to discover it, so I can treat it at that level of HIV.
So if a person knows their status on time, there are things we call antiretroviral therapy, and these are drugs. Because basically, what HIV does is that it weakens the immune system, and so basically, infections that an immunocompetent, that's a person with good immunity, would not readily have. These people, they are more exposed to have it, and that's why we say that they could have opportunistic infections. And in plain terms, they're like infections that ordinarily, if your immune system is strong, is not supposed to be a problem for your body to fight. Because in our body, we have like soldiers in our bodies that helps us to fight against infections. So that's why maybe when you have a flu, like when you have catarrh or something, even whether or not you treat it sometimes, it's quite that it just goes. But then in people that have HIV, people that are immunocompromised, that is to say that the immunity is compromised in these individuals, they might have issues creating developing immunity against these things that should readily not be a problem, or that might not be a problem in a person that has strong immunity. So basically what HIV does, what that virus does, is that it actually targets cells, which we call CD4 cells. And these are like cells that help you fight. So basically it goes in, it merges with like the DNA and things like that. And then, it's like that unfriendly friend that comes in and then starts to replicate and then eventually compromises.
All right. We'll further the conversation a bit now, but I'll be shortly after this commercial break. Join us again on Honor 103.5 FM.
Feel the vibes on Honor 103.5 FM.
Let's rock.
Honorable Pelu Abidemi Akande, Chairman of your State House of Assembly Service Commission. I will be live at War with Honor, Season 2, by special grace of God, December 7th, 2024. Thank you.
Are you ready to walk with purpose? Walk with pride. It's time for Walk with Honor 2.0. Mark your calendars, December 7th, 2024. Join thousands of participants as we take to the streets in a celebration of fitness, unity, and community spirit. Whether you're walking for health, for fun, or for the love of honor, this is your event. Together, we'll make strides toward a healthier and stronger tomorrow. Don't miss the chance to be part of something bigger. Invite your friends, family, and colleagues. Lace up your sneakers and let's walk together with honor. Remember, December 7th, 2024. Walk with Honor 2.0. Stay tuned to Honor 103.5 FM for updates. Let's make this walk unforgettable.
òdodo lọ̀rọ̀ Yorùbá tó sọ pé bàbá dóko bàbá ẹlòmíì rí a ní kò sóko tó jókòó bàbá ẹni lọ. ìgbà tí mo dé Subcam Leading Hotel and Suites ni mo fìdí ọ̀rọ̀ yìí múlẹ̀ láìsí àní-àní ìgbádùn ṣodo síbi kan ju bìkan lọ. Subcam is centrally located in a secure environment that gives you rest of mind anytime, any day. At Subcam, our goal is to offer our guests a comfortable, affordable, and exceptional accommodation. There is also event and conference hall for all occasions with watertight security. Our restaurant serves local and continental cuisines. Assorted drinks are also available in our bar whenever you want it, alongside Wi-Fi coverage and top-notch laundry with other facilities too numerous to mention. Seeing is believing. Subcam Leading Hotel and Suites is at Plus 3 Mechanic Scheme opposite New Garage off Ijebode Road, Ibadan, Oyo State. Telephone 090-6466-7569. Subcam Leading Hotel and Suites. In hospitality, we lead. àgbò tó tàdí mẹ́yìn agbára lọ́lọ́run wá. Àríyá extra ti yíra padà ó gbọ̀nà ọ̀tún yọ gbogbo ọjọ́ Wednesday bẹ̀rẹ̀ látago 4 sí 5 ìrọ̀lẹ́ lẹ́ẹ̀májà ládùn ẹ̀ báyìí. Samson Balogun MC Captain ti ṣetán láti máa gbé wa tàbáyé níkànnì ọ̀nà 103.5 FM lórí Àríyá extra tọ̀sẹ̀ yìí á dùn yàtọ̀ ó yá gbé bọ́dì gbé sólù ẹ̀ kájọ máa yí bí sí rìn.
On 103.5 FM. Nice. I take it without doctor's prescription. All on doctor's attention. If you need solution,
The greatest wealth is health. And that's according to an ancient Roman poet. Of course, that quote reminds us that health is our most valuable asset. And just to add up to that, he who has health has hope. And he who has hope has everything. Also an Arabian proverb. Of course, the World Health Organization would not stop saying that health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. Of course, those are what we're trying to do. Of course, making awareness about your health, my health, and our health all together. Let's talk about it, the health we have in the country. Of course, the health crisis, that we have in the country. And of course, we are still talking about HIV and AIDS. Of course, today being a time we're we are marking the significance of awareness for our HIV and AIDS patients and people, so they can know what to do and how to go about if they have the problems. Now, welcome back to the show. Dr. Odoa Tony. Yes. Yeah. Thank you for standing by. So I wanted to ask you a question before we went on that about transmission. There's been a lot of controversies. People have talked about different ways of contracting the virus. Some have said, how can you? Some said it has to be a coital relationship or else you would not have it. Some have said if you go to barber shop. But with all of that together, how is HIV infection? How can it be transmitted? How is it being transmitted across?
HIV is transmitted through bodily fluids, through our body fluids. And so that means that through blood, it can be gotten. And examples of ways it can be gotten through blood transmission is, for instance, people that do do drugs, for instance, drug addicts, and that use the same syringe over and over and over again, you could have it. Then also in blood transfusion, if the blood is not properly screened before it is transfused, one can also have HIV. But just to allay fears, so that people don't think that they shouldn't get blood transfused, hospitals already would have screened the blood. Would usually have screened the blood properly before having the blood transfused into another individual. So at least we should not be so like, okay, I don't want to get the blood transfused. No, we already actually screen for these viruses before the blood is transfused to another person. So another thing is, like you said, barber shop and people that share shops. It's also very true that one can get it in that way. So it's advisable for maybe women that want to maybe do putting weave, sewing, they want to fix their hair, to actually have your own needles. And also for men that might want to cut their hair, they should have their own clippers. And not share clippers with people. But on the top one, even before that, unprotected sexual intercourse is a very, very rampant. It's a very, very common way of getting infected with HIV. So if people try to have sex and they are not using protection, in terms of condoms, it's very possible that they come down with the virus. Then also, it can also be transmitted from mother to child. So if a the mother is living with HIV and she doesn't know, or that she knows and she doesn't take her drug, it's very possible that she passes it down to the child. But if the mother, that's one benefit of going for antenatal, because in antenatal we pick up these things that we know, okay, instead of waiting for it to lead to these things, we could just readily like curtail it before it even gets there. And so they will make sure that they monitor the mom, and it can actually be prevented if proper measures are taken, and that if she registers at an antenatal care facility.
Okay. Does it automatically mean that if a mother is an HIV person, a positive person, like has the status, does it mean the person is going to transmit it to an unborn child inside the womb? How does it play around?
No, okay. So like I said, it depends on, one, does she know that she's HIV positive? Because if she doesn't know, there's a very high chance that there will be no care for it, and so very high chance that the child will come down with HIV. But if she knows, there are also two pathways. If she knows, is she compliant with her medications? Because it's not only about knowing your status. It's when you take the antiretroviral therapy, that is the ART drugs. It's when you take those drugs that actually reduce the viral load. And when the viral load is very reduced, this is like what prevents one from transmitting it to someone else. So if a mother knows that she's HIV positive, or maybe she finds out during antenatal care, and she's willing to take the therapy, there are very reduced chances of the child coming down with it. And also some measures will also be taken just to prevent the child from having it. Like the child could also be given drugs when the child is born for a while, just to prevent the child from coming down with it. But it still boils down to knowing the status on time.
I just got a message from one of my barbers. Is asking a question now that if everybody cannot, if let's just say if everybody does not have a clipper to themselves, could there be a way to disinfect clippers or sharp object before use?
Oh, okay. So for that, advisably, you should have clippers. Sorry, I don't really know how. I don't really know if they have sterilizers for for barbing salon. I'm not really sure of that. But for a lady that wants to fix her hair, you need to make sure you have your needles and things like that. Because if they have sterilizers that are very sure for clippers, then I will ensure that can sterilize it properly. But like I'm not well detailed in sterilizers for clippers, so my own for now, what I would say for now is that one should try to get their own clippers and not share it, because you never know if they've used it for someone that was HIV positive and it's just a small cut, and then you're just cutting your hair and the same thing happens to the person and the other person that is not infected has it, and so there's a higher chance of the person coming down with HIV. So instead of having all of those things, you're a male. I don't know if there is a sterilizer.
There's one. But run me through the sterilization process. I know some people have said that viruses don't live outside a host for about some hours. I really cannot put details to that, but you know better, right?
Yeah.
So they say a virus cannot stay outside of its host, maybe on an inanimate substance in the presence of heat or something. So I don't know. But one of the things that I've seen many barbers do is that they put a lighter to the clipper, and then they light the lighter, and then there's fire on the clipper. Does this sterilize? What's the sterilization method? Is it heat? Is it a particular fluid, maybe a liquid or a substance, a chemical substance that needs to be put on the surface, or what? Or how can you best sterilize such things?
Okay, I know, for maybe surgical equipment, the way they're sterilized is that we have different forms of sterilization. They can be heat sterilization, that's at a very high temperature. I think it's called an autoclave that they could use for that.
Yeah.
There could be chemical sterilization, and that is using certain chemicals that are strong enough to kill the virus. So, yes. So I'm not really familiar with what is used in the barbing salon to sterilize, and so I wouldn't really know.
Yeah, I've seen. Well, it depends on this barbing salon you're talking about. Of course, there's some barbershop that, of course, you know what I'm saying. But others have like this. They call it sterilizer. It has a blue light. I don't know what. Maybe there's ultra violet radiation or something. I don't know what exactly is inside, but I can tell that there's a blue light and there's some movement inside that container where you put your clipper. But you don't have it everywhere. I mean, like, this is anyway. But I think it's something everybody should get, right? Every barber should get that.
Everybody should also try to get their own clipper to just be safe.
All right. Okay. So let's get ahead with this now. There's a lot of ways people have talked about. I've seen a lot of people say that if you go to a barber in one locale, like one very, very remote place, you probably will get cure for HIV and AIDS. But exactly, take us through the medical process. How is HIV and AIDS? How is the infection treated? How can it be treated?
Okay, so what we have for now, the broad scale, even if maybe there have been a few, maybe very few instances, or maybe some people having like a CD4 transplant, but right now, medically, there's actually no cure. We can just help to control it. We can help to control.
Doctor, there's no cure.
There's no cure.
Even with those babas in the villages.
I don't know what those babas are doing, but medically, I don't know what angle they are coming from, but from my profession and what I know, there is no cure for HIV.
All right.
There is no cure medically for HIV as of now. What we can just do is to contain it. So I don't know what the babas are using. Maybe if they have the cure, maybe they could share it with science, but I don't know about.
All right. Talking about the cure still, right? But I want you to run us through how. You said it can be maintained, it can be managed, right? How do you manage? Is it with those drugs that you call ARV, antiretroviral drugs, or how? Is there any other way around?
Okay, so basically, for people that have it, that is the drugs that I told you. I mentioned earlier that what HIV does is that it sort of like affects the CD4 cells, and so the person's immunity is affected. So in people that take these drugs, there are different categories of how, there are different groups of these drugs and how they act on the cell, because like the cell, okay, I don't want to go too deep into it because our cell is like also has deeper things in a cell, and like there are different stages, kind of like a what system would I call it? This system that one person does one job and then it transfers to another place and transfers. So we have different places within the cell. So different groups of these drugs target the different places, because majorly what that virus does is that it enters into the cell, then eventually it finds a way to merge with the DNA of the cell, and then it now replicates. So it's like what is giving birth to is now carrying the virus. You get? So it's like saying that, a man marries a woman, and the person now has traits. The child that is born would have part of the genetic makeup of the man. So basically, I hope you're able to follow up. I'm trying to see how I can try to
explain. We're following.
Of how it works, so that maybe you have a bit of insight as to how the medications work. So basically, there are different ways that the drugs now target that. To prevent this virus from entering into the DNA, this is what we are going to do, so as to prevent it from replicating and now carrying the viral makeup, like having the HIV being, because our cells multiply. So to prevent the cells that have the HIV, that have the virus in it multiplying, so it finds a way to inhibit or to prevent the HIV from like being a part of the cell. So basically, back to the question on it. So people that take those drugs, the drugs find different targets, different places to target, and to prevent like the cells from now having more of HIV cells. So those are for people that have it. So majorly, what it affects is the CD4. So the lower the CD4 goes, and also it's also a part of staging of how to know, this person is in stage 1, also stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, based on the level of the CD4 cells. So these drugs help the CD4 cells to like stop being affected. And so when they are not really affected, these people don't really come down with infections that could lead to like them being sick. John, I don't know if you understand.
I'm getting you.
So basically, in people that have it and those drugs, these drugs help to prevent the CD cells from falling, and so they are able to be stable. And so when they take those drugs, it even comes to a point, because the lower the cells, the higher the viral load, the higher the virus in the body, the lower the amount of cells that fight that of these CD4 cells that readily fight. So basically, when they take their drugs, it helps to reduce the viral load, and at some point, the viral load even becomes undetectable, and so they are less likely to even transmit it. So that's why a couple, for instance, that has maybe one person now comes down with HIV. If the person with HIV is able to take the medications properly, and if the person that does not have HIV, there's something we call pre-exposure prophylaxis that can also be to help like prevent this person from having the HIV.
All right.
Yes, so there are different angles. One from the person that is the person that has it, and also preventive measures that can be taken by people that don't even have HIV yet.
All right. Thank you very much for that, Dr. Bami Boye, this afternoon. Of course, I have another question. I've seen cases, or I read in the material online, of course, one of the WHO materials, that there's something called undetectable. So help us into that. What does it mean to have undetectable viral load?
Okay, yes. So that was what I was saying. So undetectable viral load is when you have viral, like when you have like a load of HIV in the cell is less than 20. So like it's relatively like this person, like so the chances of the person transmitting it is very low to another person.
So there's a count. There's a count that's like 20. It has to be 20.
No, it's like less than 20.
Less than 20. All right. So there's a count like, so there's 25, 27, 30.
It can be higher and higher and higher. The viral load can be very high in people that don't take any of the medication.
Okay, so the higher it is, the higher the chances of contracting it from another person. The chance of transmitting. Yeah.
And also, the lower the CD4 cells will likely become.
All right. That makes sense. Help us again into this now. What illness can affect people living with HIV? Is there a particular illness?
Yes, there are different illnesses that can affect them. And now, is it people living with HIV without taking the antiretroviral therapy?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, like I mentioned earlier, there's something we call opportunistic infections. And so, these are infections that, so they can come down with various things, that they can even have some form of cancers that might be rare in the normal population. They can come down with it. They can come down with also some form of lung infections that might not readily. Okay, one infection that people with HIV come down with a lot is also tuberculosis. Tuberculosis, they come down with it also. So usually drugs are given for that as well.
All right.
So they could come down with basically even more infections, because it's not like one rule for all based on the person. So they're not taking drugs, cannot come down with a variety of illnesses.
Oh, okay. I want to ask a question again. How can sexual transmission of HIV be prevented? I know this is very important, especially to Gen Zs and our young people who are trying to explore and do many things, explore options, explore boyfriends and girlfriends and all that. So how can it exactly? How can it be checked into? How can it be prevented?
So people that cannot practice abstinence.
Let's take it one after the other. So abstinence is the first thing, right? So if you cannot deal with abstinence,
what we especially advise is abstinence from like premarital sex, if possible. Stay away from it.
All right.
And so if one cannot stay away from it, usually you should have one partner, one sexual partner.
And the partner must have one partner, and that's you.
No, we can't tie anybody down. But if a person is having sex with only one person, and maybe they know each other's status, and the person is not sleeping around, and they are not both sleeping around, and they don't have multiple sexual partners, the risk of picking up HIV from someone is lower. Because if you know each other's status, and maybe let's say a boy and girl, they have premarital sex, and maybe they are the only ones having sex with each other, and they know each other's status, then we know that, okay, the chances of getting HIV is reduced if none of them have HIV. But if one of them has a lot of sexual partners, and since a lot of people, we don't know what their status is like, and so it's possible that the person now has it, and if one of the partners gets it, can now infect the other partner, and so if they sleep around with different people, the chances of getting it is also high.
All right, thank you. How effective is the use of sheath That's condom, like you call it. How
Yes.
effective is the use?
So condoms should also, we do not advise unprotected sexual intercourse, whether it's only one partner you have who premarital sex, we advise that you should use condoms. And condoms are they are quite effective, very effective in preventing HIV.
But on a scale,
But
are they
if
100% effective?
one properly, yes. And it's not a situation of, okay, maybe the person is having sex and the condom breaks. If the
All right.
condom breaks, try to stop because it's the barrier. So the condom should be worn properly. Yes.
All right. All right, thank you so very much this afternoon, Dr. Bamiboyo Luatoni, for your views, your takes, and all, some of the points you've made today. Of course, people have listened and they know how best to work around this. And of course, I think this is a good way to create awareness amongst people who are in this quota. Of course, everybody is in this quota, so you have something to do as well to prevent yourself from contracting the virus. Thank you very much. Good afternoon to you, Doctor.
Thank you so much.
All right, all right. But okay, Nigerians, of course, that's where we draw the curtains for this edition of today. Of course, just like we've been discussing on major topics, and if you ask what then is the topic we're discussing, is still HIV and AIDS, because December 1st was actually World AIDS Day, and we need to bring that awareness to a lot of people. And just like we are doing, it's our responsibility to get you informed, get you aware, get you abreast of every of the things you can do, because you have a part to take as well, to play in this game as a way to prevent some of these diseases and illnesses. Thank you very much, Nigerians, for listening and joining us on Honor 103.5 FM. It's been a wonderful time with you, and I'm signing out till next week when we take on another subject. Please stay with us and don't go nowhere.